Well, I think we're going to go ahead and get started, and other people join as we go. That's all right. So as you can see, we are doing something a little new since we're back working in our office safely, of course. We're having our cameras on for a little bit just so you can see our beautiful faces, but don't worry, it won't be the whole time. I know that Mike is happy about that. But just want to welcome and thank you guys for attending our webinar today on upgrading Enterprise. We've got a lot to cover, probably be about 40 minutes or so. Michael will go through, and we'll try to leave a little time at the end for question and answer. Obviously, we use Zoom for all our webinars if you guys have attended before, but if not, you've probably used Zoom in some other capacity with someone else. So at any point in time, I'll be sending some links and some information through the chat room. You can get a hold of us there if you can't hear or see something, something goes wrong. Also, at any point in time, you can submit your questions through the Q&A bar or Q&A box. So just down on your little toolbar there, hit the Q&A. You can submit those questions. And like I said, we're gonna try to answer those live as much as we can towards the end of the webinar. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick. I just want to let you guys know we are continually trying to bring you guys content. So we've got our webinar scheduled throughout the rest of the year. Really popular one next week. We got quite a few people signed up, switching over from ArcMap to ArcGIS Pro. That's on September 15th. And then part 2 of our Survey 123 Connect series is next Thursday, September 17th. That's at 10. It's a half-hour webinar. And then in November, we've got another webinar on parcel fabric, and then part 3 of our Survey 123 Connect webinar series. That's on November 19th. So for those webinars, and I think we've got a couple more for December still, you can see there, go to cloudpointgeo.com/webinars. I'm going to send that to you guys as well into chat room. And then, like I said, we use Zoom for everything that we do here. So if you have a Zoom account, it makes it a little easier, but not necessary. Big news, though, is next Friday, not this Friday, but next Friday, September 18th, we are having another Public Works GIS Solutions virtual showcase. So again, obviously through Zoom, live virtual events, but it's a half day, 8:30 to about 12:30. I think we've got 4 different presentations, all Public Works and GIS related. We've got Mitch Winnicky coming back from Esri. He's going to present. And then, of course, a couple of our engineers and technicians here from Cloudpoint will present as well. So anybody in the Public Works realm or engineers of any kind, GIS admins and technicians, please jump on to there. And I'll send that to you guys as well, but please jump on there and sign up. It's going to be really good. First one, we got a lot of really good response from. People seem to really enjoy it. We'll have breakout sessions in the middle there. Try to get some swag together and send you guys that as well. Have a little drawing for that, but please sign up there. It's a good half day, and we'll be offering some hours that you can use for that as well. So, but with that being said, let's get started. So obviously you guys know us from a lot of different areas, Public Works. We even do cemeteries. We've got our ArcGIS indoor specialty now, but of course ArcGIS online specialty and Enterprise, and that's what we're here to talk about today. So I'm going to turn it over to Micah. Let's unmute you, Micah. Maybe. There we go. All right, and if you want to go ahead and share, and we'll get started.
Sure. And we said that, and my Zoom toolbar went away. Hold on. There it is. I got it. I'll share my screen. Desktop 2. All right. Looks good? Good. All right. So, good morning, everybody. We're going to talk today about ArcGIS Enterprise and the different versions. We're going to go through some of those versions, and we're going to discuss some of the deployment things, and then we're going to just kind of step through each one of the versions. So this is the agenda. We're going to compare and contrast a little bit of ArcGIS Online with ArcGIS Enterprise and what the difference is, and how you might be able to make a decision on which one you want to use or both. Then we're going to talk about some deployments, and it's like the standard Esri deployments, thing that we'll kind of discuss. We'll discuss a little bit on how to maybe find your version if you don't know what version you are, and then we'll talk about the what's new, which is bulk of our talk when we actually go through each version, starting with 10.5, and kind of what each one related to, and how that was, what's different between that and previous versions. And we'll talk about support and Esri support after that. All right. The first survey, and Bill, if you can toss up the survey on the survey number 1, what we'd really like to know is, are you more portal or are you more ArcGIS Online, and how you do that? And so you should have a survey that popped up on your screen. And if you're, I guess the idea, we're trying to get a gauge on what you're using and how you're using Enterprise versus Portal. And results are coming in. This is good.
Give it a few more seconds here. Looks like most everybody's answering.
And can we display the results of them? Okay, great.
We'll go ahead. All right, we'll go ahead and close that. And there we go. So mostly AGO.
Yeah, so most 55% of people are 100% in ArcGIS Online. So you have a lot of experience using that, and if you don't use either, I think it said, or it says on the screen, if you don't use Portal or you don't have Portal, then you're all AGO. So maybe that's where some of that is derived from. We do have a couple of people who are using a lot of Portal, which is great, and everybody who's middle of the road, the rest of them. So that's good. It's good to know, so we can kind of, as I talk through things, it's helpful for me to know where the audience is and where they live. So it sounds like, by and large, a majority of you live in AGO world. So we'll try to relate that to what we're doing. So here's the difference. Get the thing out of the way. All right. So Portal versus ArcGIS Online. We've been dealing with ArcGIS Online for 6-7 years. Actually, probably more than that. When it came out, it was we're probably pushing 10 years ago when AGO actually came out in its free version. When Esri first released it, it was pretty much, you had a 2 gig limit, I think, but it was free. It was just kind of their cloud solution. And obviously it's matured a lot in the last 8 years, but Portal is essentially AGO on premise. It's an installation, and your Portal is your ArcGIS Online local solution, right? It doesn't mean you can't use both. You definitely can use both AGO and Portal at the same time. But the balance always is, what do I put on AGO versus what do I have on Portal, and what's that operate and look like in between? That's always going to be the question that everybody has. And it's just kind of like, well, it depends. The differences from a technical standpoint is AGO is updated 4 times a year, and Portal, there's only 1 to 2 releases a year. And the dot version, which usually comes in the June-July timeframe, and then the .0 version, or .0, usually comes in the December-January timeframe. So there's usually just 1 to 2 releases of Portal, but ArcGIS Online updates, and we just got a new one, updates about 4 times a year, and it just happens. That's the whole idea of a SaaS. It just happens. But with AGO, you can't extend it. You get what you get, and you can't necessarily add things yet. You can't necessarily add extended items or specific dev edition type of things to the web app builder or experience builder. You can't necessarily do a lot of customization to the ArcGIS Online. Yes, there is a dev version. You can get web app builder dev edition and experience builder dev edition. You can make your own thing and base it on web maps. but there's a certain limit on how much you can actually customize with AGO. With Portal, since it's on your environment, you have complete extendability to that if you wanted to. Your data store, the federation with your data store, this is why you would do it. This is why you would go to Portal. Having data in your SQL data store, that's lowercase data store, and having that data being pushed right out up to your server or through Portal onto ArcGIS online, or however you want to be able to kind of mitigate that, but that is your data. That's enterprise. And when you are publishing your data from your data store out to Portal and to the rest of the world, or into ArcGIS Online even. So then authentication, that's the other difference. You can have Active Directory authentication, you can have web tier authentication, you can have LDAP, you can have SAML on Portal. ArcGIS Online only allows for SAML authentication. So there's certain things that you're limited to with ArcGIS Online if you only use SAML. And it's SAML 2.0 if you're interested in that, but that is a specific thing. Sometimes you have need for other options for authentication. With ArcGIS Portal, you have unlimited viewers. I don't know if you've licensed ArcGIS Portal, but it'll literally say it's unlimited. You can have 10,000. It doesn't, I mean, I've never done that. I've done 1,000 before, but you can have as many viewers as you want, because it is your infrastructure. It is your bandwidth. It is your network backbone. Everything is on your system. So you have unlimited viewers. Editors, they limit. They limit your, this used to be called level 2 users. So an editor, a contributor, I forget the terms because that's been expunged, but the idea of level 2, somebody who's actually interacting with the data, those are limited, and those are there. We'll tell you about how how many you have towards the end. But unlimited viewers, and each user is purchased on ArcGIS Online, even if it's just a viewer. You can have a public, sure, you can make a public, but in order to look at protected user data, you have to purchase a viewer. That's $100 a year, so it's not awful, but those are specific users that you would have. You can't have 1,000, or I suppose you can, but you're going to pay for it. And sometimes you want to take your portal and keep it completely sequestered from the internet, completely offline, completely behind a firewall. That might be an IT need that you have, DoD or HIPAA or some other reason that you want to have your stuff completely offline, or behind a VPN. That would be using ArcGIS Portal. You can't really do that with ArcGIS Online because it lives on the internet. All right. So those are the two differences that we talked about, or the two different things that we talk about. The differences are, and those are a little bit, it's a little bit of a high level of a difference. There are some other differences, but those are the big ones. Okay, so let's talk about the Esri base deployment. The Esri base deployment, and this is about as Esri slidey as I'm going to get. What I mean by that is Esri has these slides that they always are famous for using. This is about the one that we're going to sit here for a little bit and discuss it. But this is Esri's base deployment. This is what they talk about when they talk about your base deployment. Now, what I want to say is this can be done on one machine, or it can be done on 20 machines. It can be multiple and high availability, multiple machine deployments, and all that kind of stuff. It works, but this is the base of what they're talking about. And what I mean by that, if you put this all on one machine, it's going to be a little bit heavy, because there are 4 major components of this, right? Let me get my my pen. There are 4 major components. The first one is your data, right? This data store is the ArcGIS Enterprise data store. Esri is famous for taking generic terms and putting ArcGIS in front of it, and that becomes their product. All right, so ArcGIS Data Store is one of that. If you talk to any DBA, any database administrator, a data store is a generic term that is used for a database. It's the storage of data, right? So, but ArcGIS Data Store, capital D, capital S, ArcGIS Data Store is the install version of Esri's Data Store that fuels the Esri-based deployment. So it becomes the hosted managed database for Portal, right? That is ArcGIS Data Store. I'll talk a little bit about your SQL data in a second, but that's one of the four components of the base deployment. The second one is your hosting server. This is ArcGIS Server. This is what we've had for 15 years. ArcGIS Server is the one piece that takes it from the data store, wraps it up in a web layer, and kicks it out to Portal and ArcGIS Online or AGO or Portal. Those are two. Those can or both portals. So capital P Portal is Esri's your ArcGIS Online that you're installing in your environment, and ArcGIS Online itself is a portal. And then you can just have ArcGIS and have it go completely around Portal and into some web application that you have that you built on Silverlight still. If you have that, still running, it can completely go around AGO and everything and just feed right into as a REST endpoint, feed into some other application, right? It doesn't have to do that. You can still install this and not have to use Portal. And then that means that Portal for ArcGIS is the third component. This is what we've been talking about. This is the ArcGIS install or ArcGIS Online installed in your network. So Esri's actual SaaS offering of AGO packaged into an install file and put on your own network. That's the third component. And the fourth component are these web adapters. And each portal and your ArcGIS server require a web adapter. If you're on this and you've had this type of deployment before, you'll know that your ArcGIS server has been able to have a web adapter since version 10.2. So it's available if you wanted it, but it's not necessarily required until 10.5. I'm going to erase everything here. And let me go to the next slide when we talk a little bit about your existing SDE. So when we have all of these components, we have the web adapter, we have Portal, we have ArcGIS Server, and we have Esri's data store installed, you also have your SDE. Where does that fit into this? Your existing SQL, Postgres, DB2, I don't know if anybody still has, that IBM type of database, but mostly SQL is in most everybody uses SQL or Postgres. That is a data store, small d, small s, data store. Your existing database still can exist and plug into your ArcGIS server. That still works. That flow is great. Well, then what the heck is this thing, right? You need to think of Esri's ArcGIS data store is the database for Portal, right? So if you have this data store feeds the analysis, the Scratch database when you create a runtime buffer on ArcGIS Online, or you create some type of a watershed analysis, and it creates this polygon or something like that. That data that you just created through that analysis is stored on your data store. Right? When you take a CSV file and you drag it onto the map and it geocodes everything automatically on ArcGIS Online or your portal, that is creating a layer in your ArcGIS data store. It doesn't create it here. It doesn't create it on your existing database. It creates it on the ArcGIS data store. So it's important for you to know that that data store is kind of important to Portal. It's kind of required. I'll say kind of, because yeah, you can not have a managed database on your portal, but then what you can't do are all the analysis. You can't upload a shapefile to have a hosted data layer on your portal. And you're handicapping yourself kind of through using Pro and all those other new tools that we've got, because you're not getting all of the benefit out of Portal if you don't have a data store. At the back end, it actually creates a Postgres database in the program files. That's what Esri is using for their data store. They're using Postgres here, right? So what I want to emphasize is you can continue using your Esri or your SDE, your existing SQL or Postgres database that has fed your ArcGIS server for 10 years, still can sit and live there, and you don't necessarily even have to use it. It hooks in, and you make it, you publish data through it up to ArcGIS Portal. That's great. That's continued. But you're going to have this extra ArcGIS data store that is a scratch database for Portal. All right. There are classes that Esri has on this, and we can help you explain that in greater detail further and look at your own environments and kind of go through all of this stuff if you wanted. But it gets a little bit heady, and I need a specific whiteboard to be able to kind of talk about those things. All right. So knowing all that, and knowing this is a 45-minute webinar, I want to move on to another survey because I've got more important things to talk about. So what version of ArcGIS Enterprise do you have? That's the next survey that we want to kick out to you guys. What version of ArcGIS Enterprise do you have? If you don't, do we not have that as an option? Shucks. Sorry, Bill. I should have said no option or no portal or no enterprise.
Mistake.
But we'll know that if people don't put anything, that maybe they don't have enterprise. So that might be that's our fault. That's actually my fault. So surveys are coming in.
All right, let's see. Looks like we've slowed down on the voting here. So
Okay.
share results.
Okay. So we've only got about half the people, I'm going to guess, that responded or didn't. If it didn't respond, I'm guessing that you didn't have ArcGIS Enterprise. So we've got most people in 10.5 or 10.6, and then a couple 10.7, no brave souls yet in 10.8 or 10.8.1. That's fine. That's great. All of those are completely supported and in support from Esri. So you're doing fine on those. And you might want to have an upgrade in the future if you see through these slides, the next few slides that we have, there are some things that you want, all right? So what you can do, right? So here's the difference. And the next few slides, we're going to talk about each individual release and what was released at that time. So if you see things that's like, oh, that is a deal breaker, that is a reason that we need to upgrade to that version. So hopefully that's what we're going to get out of this. At 10.5 and 10.51, that was the change to Enterprise. That was the name change. It used to be Portal separate from ArcGIS Server. Yes, because Portal was available at 10.4, by the way. Portal separate from ArcGIS Server. ArcGIS Data Store didn't even exist before 10.5, so there wasn't that thing to worry about. But we had this big name change, and there's a big rollout, and maybe even some, Esri did some webinars or some workshops that was about ArcGIS Enterprise 10.5. We all wrote a blog about it because it was a big change. It was not only a name change, they came out with this whole idea of server roles with server geo events, geo analytics, business analysts, all those types of things. I'm going to make sure that I have my laser pointer because I'm shaking the mouse on there, and so I want you to be able to see it. So all these different server roles that you have came available at 10.5. All right, 10.5 was the last release that updated or that was okay with 2008 server, 2008 Windows Server. This is when they introduced the whole level 1, level 2 users. Originally at 10.5, you didn't have unlimited viewers. You had to, it's since changed, but you had to say, oh, I want, I think there was a limit of maybe 25 or 50 or something like that. When they first released 10.5, viewers weren't unlimited, but we as user base kind of screamed at Esri, and they opened it up because they were like, well, you know, it's your funeral. It's your infrastructure that you're going to be taxing if you have 1,000 users, but it was up to you. So they made that unlimited shortly after that. And then Web App Builder that we're used to in ArcGIS Online came to us at this portal. We could have our own Web App Builder on Portal. Enterprise Builder replaces the old Cloud Builder. So Enterprise Builder, if you hear about that, that's the same as Cloud Builder, and it's one machine. Okay, that's important to note. 10.5, we had portal-to-portal collaboration or distributed collaboration. In 10.51, there was a beta option that you could actually collaborate with your ArcGIS Online organization. So that was at 10.5 and 10.51 kind of together. Specific to 10.6, if you upgraded 10.6, you'll need to reauthorize your software. Just that's how it is. There isn't any path to keep your license. Esri has worked really hard on making the license process easier. You used to have to call customer service, and they would flip a switch or something like that, and you would be able to get reauthorized. But now it's been a much more streamlined process. So reauthorizing your software isn't the grueling process that you would have before. ArcGIS Enterprise Builder got some updates. Chef was a way to distribute or to pre-can a rollout of Enterprise. I don't use Chef. I've installed Enterprise dozens of times, and I've never used Chef because it seems to be a little bit more work than it's not worth it. Unless you do this multiple times on the same exact environments, I don't really feel like it's a big benefit. The app launcher, the little Brady Bunch 9 icon button that you have on ArcGIS Online became available to us in 10.6. And that way you can swap back and forth between different apps. The data tab, so this one is kind of important. The data tab allowed us, now we can add fields to our hosted feature layers. We can calculate fields, we can delete fields, we can create lists that are really domains. Those are all released in 10.6 that we can do that. What I want to point out to this is these are hosted feature layers specifically. We'll talk a lot about that. Let me pop back just for a second, right, into one of these slides. The hosted feature layers live on your ArcGIS data store. All right, a hosted feature layer is not in your existing SDE. If it is hosted, and a hosted feature layer has to live in Esri's data store, so it knows and can anticipate where the data is at, the indexing, it takes care of all that. That's what we're talking about when we talk about hosted feature layer. It's a layer that is in your ArcGIS data store. Just like on ArcGIS Online, a hosted feature layer is a layer that you have uploaded to ArcGIS Online, and there's no connection to your environment. All right, I'm looking at the time when I do that because it's right underneath my camera. All right, an administrator role can be used. You can configure some vector base maps on this at 10.6. You can use arcade and pop-ups at 10.6. More items. When distributed collaboration or portal-to-portal collaboration came out, you could only pretty much serve hosted feature layers, web maps, and I think one or two other items. So at 10.6, there are a lot more items that you could share essentially between your ArcGIS portal and ArcGIS Online, or between your portal and a neighboring county's portal. Or if you're a county, your municipalities have a portal, there's some of that sharing that you can go. So now you can, when this more items are CSV and Excel files and PDFs and web maps and different groups and things like that. There's a lot more options that you could actually share. Esri has this all documented on their sites about what you can actually share in portal-to-portal collaboration, but that is it's helpful to be able to know that at 10.6 there's a lot more items that you could share. This also released hosted feature layer views. So again, there's that term, hosted feature layer. These are views that are essentially a layer file or symbology change of the original layer. So when you upload and you have a hosted feature layer, you upload that to ArcGIS Portal, you can now take and point at that and change the symbology and call it a view. It's a view of a hosted feature layer that you can maybe add a query on, add a symbology change, or add some type of a filter or whatever, and that becomes a hosted feature layer view. That was released at 10.6. That's kind of a handy thing. The two big things here on this one are the data tab change that you can allow you to change things of your hosted feature layers, or this view as well on hosted feature layers. These made things a lot more, the efficiency and the productivity and the response time grew a lot at that one. All right. 10.5, if you're upgrading from 10.6, you don't have to reauthorize, but if you're upgrading from 10.5 or earlier, you will have to reauthorize. It only supported a federated hosting feature layer that was a relational data store through their data store. So previous versions, 10.6, 10.51, 10.5, you can actually use a hosted feature layer that was on SDE or a SQL instance that got wiped away at 10.6. You would have to, if you want to have a hosted feature server that we've been talking about, you would have to use Esri's data store. And that's just a way for them to be able to know and expect where the files are installed. And, if you have your IT department install SQL, Esri doesn't have access to the SA, they don't have access to indexing, they don't have access to different types of things that they want to be able to kind of know and expect. So that's what happens with the Esri, the ArcGIS data store. They know where things are and they can expect where it is, so they can make things more efficient. Sites became installed. You can actually, this has actually been deprecated at 10.81, but you can install our ArcGIS Enterprise sites. Vector tiles, this is where they introduced vector tiles. You can label things as authoritative or deprecated. You have this on ArcGIS Online too. At 10.61, this came available to you on your own portal. You can say, yes, this is the authoritative data source. This became very helpful for the open data sites and now the hub sites. This was very helpful for that. So you knew that the data that you had was authoritative or it was deprecated. There was a more current version of that somewhere else. You can sync on demand through portal-to-portal collaboration. That was helpful. I don't know why that wasn't available before, but now you can say, okay, sync. Before it was kind of a random every 5 minutes or something like that. 10.7 was kind of a big release. You'll need to reauthorize. You had new geoanalytics tools if you use that. You had the Jupyter notebooks if you use those. You can create a specific predetermined area for offline maps for a specific web map. If you always knew that your field folks are going to need offline maps, you're going to say you're going to need this area before they would have to draw the square or the rectangle every time they wanted to pull data offline. And sometimes those got a little bit, disconnected. So having somebody have a predetermined extent for an offline area helps you. There was lots of different enhancements, improvements to speed and efficiency for hosted feature layers. All right, so they're putting a lot, they being Esri, are putting a lot of efforts into making the hosted feature layers faster and more efficient because they know where the data lives. They know how it's set up. They know how their system is set up because this is specific to Esri's ArcGIS data store. So hosted feature layers become much more efficient at 10.7. You can publish to your server from Pro at 10.7. That was helpful. You can do shared instances. I need to do a blog about this, but shared instances, and you can look it up if you need to. Shared instance is every of the ArcSocs and ArcSoms, if you're familiar with those are EXEs that run on your ArcGIS server. And every time, if you say, hey, I want to have a minimum instance of 1 and a maximum instance of 10, those will create new EXEs every time that you do that for every service. What a shared pooled resource or a pooled service is, it's like, I'm going to start at 0. And I'm not going to spin up a service until somebody actually calls for that data. All right. So it's kind of a helpful way to be able to kind of share resources. If you have a layer that isn't used a lot, it's not sitting there consuming services or consuming resources on your server just by the fact of existing. It actually can shut off and not spin up a service until somebody says, yeah, let's see the zoning layer or some other, I don't know, some other layer that doesn't get a lot of traction. You can actually shut that off, and so it has 0. It's not consuming any services or resources on your server. It's specific to note that is only services that are only served or published through Pro. So that's kind of a caveat. You can't create a shared instance if you're publishing through ArcGIS ArcMap, right? Webhooks, Integramats, Zapier, Microsoft Flow, those are 3 different ways to hook into your service. Essentially, if this happens, have that task happen. If you haven't ever looked into Zapier or Integramats, that's a very handy tool to be able to kind of say, hey, if a new feature gets added, do this. Whatever this is based on the service that you set up. So those are webhooks. Look into those. Those are actually pretty helpful. It becomes essentially a poor man's version of GeoEvent. So it's not as robust as GeoEvent, I'll say it right off the bat, but it is a way to be able to kind of do things. And Integramat works with Survey123 as well. And it's kind of a helpful way to be able to kind of do some of those interactivities between those applications. And speaking of apps, a bunch of new apps became available in Portal, in your internal Portal version. You can use Indoors, you can use Tracker, Excalibur, which is an image tool. ArcGIS Companion will look at your portal. So all of these different apps are available now to Portal users, not just ArcGIS Online users. HTTPS by default was released at 10.7. Before it was HTTP, then became either or, then it was like, okay, now HTTPS by default is enabled, only HTTPS. You can go into the back end and turn on HTTP if you really want to, but I wouldn't recommend that, because how Chrome is going and how Edge is going and how even Esri is going, a lot of HTTP servers are going to have a big red blacks, whatever, it says, hey, this is not a secure site. That's just how the industry is going and moving more towards HTTP. Shoot, getting close. Sorry, guys. 10.7. If you're upgrading, you'll need to reauthorize. This is when you get the viewer types, viewer, editor, field worker, all those different types of services. This is the big UX change, big user interface change at 10.7. More improvements on hosted feature layers for data. You can add cloud places for your file shares. So you can add S3 bucket. You can add, I think it's Box or different types of, you can't add Dropbox or Google Drive, but you have cloud options for storage locations. It doesn't always have to be on your internal network. Publishing items in bulk from your data store is helpful at 10.7. 10.8. 10.8 was actually a pretty big release. You can place your entire enterprise into read-only. In case there's something that happens and you need to lock down edits, you can place the entire enterprise into read-only. Fabric and Utility Network are licensed as user type extensions, so you can have somebody who's just editing a Fabric or just adding Utility Network. Improvements again for hosted feature layers. That's a theme, isn't it? That's a theme. You can kind of keep hearing that hosted feature layers is all of the emphasis on improving publishing and efficiency of rendering the data and all that kind of stuff. You can add a banner to the top and the bottom of your site if you really want to. Storage locations on AWS, and transformation. I'm going to skip that a little bit. At 10.81, there is a chance to, you can have your help documentation source be online if you wanted to. You can actually send emails from the organization. You as the administrator up to this point would have to send somebody an email. And if you're used to using ArcGIS Online, you'll know that this is kind of like, oh, well, I get emails all the time from ArcGIS Online. Portal users, the administrator would say, okay, this is the email that you send to your user when they forget their password. So sending emails from your organization is now available at 10.81. You'll have a pop-up about your license expiration. How many times have you realized that your license expired and you didn't know that until somebody said, hey, server doesn't work or whatever? It's like, ah, crap, I forgot, this is my license expired. So you have informational message on Server Manager if you have 10.81. Published large 3D scenes or SLPK, those are 3D packages. So if you have one that's like gigs and gigs and gigs of data, you can publish that from a cloud source if you don't want to have it, or an SSD on your local network. So that's a large SLPK packages are available to be published. There used to be a limit. Offline for branch versioning. Branch versioning is Esri's new versioning style, I guess we'll say. And so that now at 10.81, there's an offline workflow for that, which is good. In case you don't always have to be connected to the enterprise before. Now you can do branch versioning offline. It manages that. Experience Builder, Esri's new web app builder, essentially, is available at 10.81, that you can actually have that internally, like we had Web App Builder from like 10.5. Now Experience Builder is available to us on our own portals. The beta map viewer is available, which is an extra install, and some membership administration things like adding a storyteller viewer or bulk assign a whole bunch of people to a group or make a user hidden or private. That's available to you at administration enhancements. I really need to cover this. I know we might be running a little bit late, Bill, but I wanted to cover two things here. This site, if you, we'll send this to you. These next two slides we'll send to you, available to you so you can actually see what we're talking about. But this is the difference between short-term support and long-term support. Short-term support is 3 years, long-term support is 5 years, and they're swapping back and forth between the dot version and the .1 version. So the dot version will be short-term support, so that's 10.6, 10.7, 10.8, and the .1 version between those of 10.61, 10.71, 10.81 are long-term support. So I think my personal opinion is they release a whole bunch of stuff at the dot version and probably will have errors with it and probably have bugs with it. So they don't necessarily always want to support that version. So they'll release a .1 version between those that will be a long-term support that's much more stable. And when I install, I usually always install a .1 version. That's just kind of my go-to. And the last slide that I want to show you are there are two documents that we will send you links to. This is the functionality matrix on the left. Every version has one of these, so you'll know what between the license levels, what you have. And at the very end of this sheet or at the very end of this PDF, there is the how many users you will get based on your license level. And then the architecting ArcGIS best practices, all of the Esri slides and Esri speak that you want to read is in this. It was updated most recently in March of 2020. I know that was a glut, and then we're sitting right now at 10:45. So do we have any questions at all?
Don't have any in there right now.
Okay.
But guys, go ahead. If you've got anything, we'll take a few minutes here.
I know I had to kind of speak really fast and kind of go through a lot of things. This will be recorded, and you'll get a link to the recording. And there isn't anything on here on this spreadsheet or this slideshow that I didn't get from Esri's website. Just kind of going through each one of the different versions and finding what you have. It's all together here, so that's helpful. But there's no insider information that I have on here. If it's an insider information, it's just me pontificating about the options of what it seems that Esri is doing.
Oh, here we go. Pop one in here. Remind me, what version is needed for Parcel Fabric in Pro?
So you can Parcel Fabric. I'm not a Parcel Fabric person, so that would be a John question. Can you get the email, and we will find out. Okay.
Yep.
We'll find out for you. I don't even want to venture a guess because I'm not a fabric guy, but we have a couple of fabric experts here, so we'll find out for you. And so, sorry.
Yep, not a problem, guys. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen with a little contact information, yeah, we'll get back to that question. And like Micah said, we will send out. We record every webinar. So once I get that kind of trimmed up, cleaned up a little bit, we'll get that sent out to you guys. Keep your eyes out for a survey. I like to send that out, just a little feedback from you. And we'll send you links to the PDFs Micah referenced, and then whatever else, whatever pertinent information we'd like you guys to have, we'll send that to you. So just want to thank you guys for attending. Had a really good webinar today. Of course, any real specific, more information, help that you guys need, your organization needs, please get a hold of us, cloudpointgeo.com/enterprise. You can email me directly, bsteele@cloudpointgeo.com. Of course, Micah as well. Office number here, 877-377-8124. And of course, we're all over social media, so you can like and share and follow us on there. But again, thank you all for attending so much, and we look forward to talking to you soon. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, guys.